Today, we break down a 2-round 2026 NFL mock draft. Let's get right into this. I promise you guys the formatting is perfectly fine. If you guys see the logo as a little bit cut off, if you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I am not getting copyright banned, but let's get into this. I always want to do a 2-round mock draft whenever possible when we do these. So A to Z ended up having one come out, saw a lot of people responding to it. So let's get into it. Below my face is my board. That is my grades based on all 22. Completely honest, completely transparent, not predictive. Players with an asterisk next to their name are due to fall with reevaluation, but I have about 290 of these players over on my Patreon, $5 a month. You get to see the full board, you get to see all the evaluations, and you get to see every single week, every single rookie that takes a rep, a very summarized version of whether they did well, not well, or in between. And then on top of that, you guys like the draft, which you guys do, I end up doing a stock report video on the show, but the extended list for all the players who I thought stood out are over on that. So you get all that for $5 a month. Good brand over there, or good group over there. Really do take pride in that. But let's talk about this first round. I'm starting this at 11 p.m. and I have a job that I have to be at 7 in the morning. But I love you guys and I want to get you content. Did not want to do a full trades mock draft this late at night. We're going to be doing that tomorrow and then on top of that Friday. So, or I think it's Friday, Saturday. I'll be dropping the videos, but I'll be recording it then. But let's get into this. Number one overall, New Orleans Saints go Dante Moore, quarterback out of Oregon. If you want to go after Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza, it's perfectly reasonable. The Saints have shown no loyalty to their quarterback situation. Granted, we'll see if they're going to prefer to get like the Cam Jordan replacement for the long haul and Ruben Bain or not. There are 2 rounds in this, so I'm curious to see how that ends up panning out. But quarterback at 1 is a very realistic move. Again, just more of a debate whether you're going to be going quarterback or edge at number 1. At number 2, we have the New York Jets going Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana. If you see any weird advertisements, I promise I do not share my cookies with AtoZsports.com. So, I will just say it's not a direct reflection. It might have been a little more entertaining if I did. Maybe we should do that in the future. Make sure I keep myself in check. But Fernando Mendoza goes to the Jets at number 2. The Jets need a quarterback. They're going to go after the guy who's there, whether it's going to be Dante Moore or Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza, my quarterback 1. People continue asking, saying, hey, I see John Mateer as the only quarterback that's visible on your board right now, yet you say Fernando Mendoza is your QB1. It's a good question to ask. If a player has a plus next to their name, that's a pre-injury grade. So for me, I like to make sure that, the grades I have public are public. I sort them biggest to smallest. I don't bullshit where I end up moving guys up and down because I just feel like it. I believe in full transparency. So if there's a player with a plus next to their name, it's not reflective of where they are right now, but it's reflective of the last time they had a numerical grade. So I'll still talk about, John Mateer in what I think of him now, but in terms of the all-22, I'm waiting for him to be a little bit healthier before I end up reevaluating him. So Fernando Mendoza is my QB1, even though I end up talking about, all right, you can end up seeing Mateer pre-injury was above Mendoza. But good move there for the Jets. Number 3, this is honestly the reason why I ended up wanting to do this video, is Tennessee Titans going David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. And if he did not assault and literally commit battery on a camera guy, I would say, to each his own. And I'm checking right now because I ended up asking whether it ended up being involved or it ended up being part of the analysis for this. I do not see that. So Ryan did not respond to my inquisition because I wanted to double check. The whole entire reason I ended up doing this was because essentially of this number 3 overall pick. But it sucks. I was really hoping that we would have ended up getting a response, is because I think he might have missed it. Usually players who end up assaulting somebody, especially publicly, there's these rumors that come out about, Mike Green with the stalking, the sexual assault allegations, and we don't have videos of it. There's a straight up video of David Bailey grabbing a camera guy by the back of his neck or the back of his shirt. Guy looked like he was in pain, so I assume there's some skin contact there and, hurting the guy. Just going to be honest, NFL team's going to be super turned off by that. And again, I did not see, because he ended up talking about a quote he got saying, oh, this guy's going to be top 15. Did not seem to be either aware or care about that incident, which to me after being burned by Braden Swinson last year. All love to the guy, but I mean, at the end of the day, shit happened. I am very, very serious about personal allegations, and especially when it's not really up in the air for debate. But the Titans could go after an edge rusher. I would just obviously prefer the guy who doesn't have said issues, and I think there's a much better player there in Ruben Bain. At number 4, the Browns go Ty Simpson, quarterback out of Alabama. We'll see what offensive system is in there, but if the Browns are saying they're at number 4, they've shown no allegiance to Shedeur Sanders. I ended up breaking down exactly my thought process for it in my own 2-rounder yesterday, so feel free to go and check that out. But Ty Simpson, it's a smart move for the Browns. It feels like the most realistic thing based on the options available. At number 5, the Dolphins go Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. There are rumors that the Dolphins are going to be shipping out at least one of their edge rushers, especially with the contracts for edge rushers being so insane. Shout out to friend of the show, James Foster. Good man. But Jermod McCoy this high makes no sense. I hate to say it. Like, I really hate to say this, but who the hell in their right mind takes a cornerback that he's finally taking his first practice reps like yesterday or today? I just got to put that out there. It's a true junior who hasn't played at all this year, coming off an ACL tear, making his first practice reps here in late October. It just doesn't make sense why he would come out, but B, why a team would end up taking Jermod McCoy over someone like Mansour Delane. If we're assuming wider or cornerback is the right move, why they would end up opting for Jermod McCoy over somebody with a full season of high tier tape, for somebody who is A, coming off injury, but B, going to have less than half of a year of tape. That just doesn't make sense. So not a fan of that one, especially because Ruben Bain's also on the board. But number 6, Giants go Spencer Fano, right tackle out of Utah. They do not have a big need at right tackle. I'm going to call it out as it is. And again, I have nothing against Ryan. He ended up being a little bit passive aggressive and unnecessarily hostile in his response to some of the things I've said. I don't mean any bad blood by it. This is more so like genuine inquisition, or the issue that we were talking about. I'm very much against arrogance. I think that if you close yourself off to being incorrect, then it makes you very untrustworthy. For me, I absolutely understand that a lot of my takes might be wrong. They're always honest, though. And I always keep an open mind through more tape I see, through different things I learn, that I'm willing to adjust my board accordingly and continue developing my skill set. I've only done this for 5.5 years, which is a long time, but there are people who've been doing it for 20, 25. I mean, those people are still learning on a daily basis as well. So why the hell would I not be? But regardless, I end up having a very strong stance against anybody who tries to act as if they're against any sort of not being open-minded. So I think it's super duper crucial. Be honest, be open-minded. That's why I love talking with you guys as well. You guys end up teaching me things that maybe I didn't even understand. So it's a great community here. If you guys have not joined already, I would love for you to be a part of it. But regardless, it does seem like I might be a little bit semi-hostile. It's not the case. I mean, again, Ryan has his, I think his name's Ryan. He has a strong cred in the business, but that also at the same time comes with, I mean, he ended up saying a lot of people respect his draft, his process, I should say. And so I think it's fair. If you want to talk a big game, we're willing to talk about big criticism. And talking about a big need at right tackle, when I think you need to understand Illuminor's far from a massive liability. I don't disagree that an upgrade could be made, but to act like the need is the right tackle spot, to me, does not add up. Like, there are practice squad wide receivers on the field right now. That kind of matters when you have elite wide receiver talents. I don't disagree again with the tackle spot, but again, the reasoning behind it, when you end up having somebody who is a self-proclaimed, very trustworthy source, we hold them accountable, right? So number 7, the Ravens go Ruben Bain Jr., edge rusher out of Miami. It'd be terrifying as a Steelers fan. It's a good move for the Ravens. At 8, the Vegas Raiders go Peter Woods, defensive interior out of Clemson. If you're not going to get a quarterback, go after the best talent available. To me, that's between Peter Woods and Caleb Downs. And so I'm not going to disagree with this. I think people get scared of the Clemson name, and especially if Peter Woods statistically not having a good year could end up kind of making people default a little bit more to scouting the helmet. I do think Peter Woods is one of the better defensive interiors that we've seen out of Clemson, at least in the more recent memory. So number 9, the Cardinals go Arvell Reese, linebacker out of The Ohio State University. We'll see what that happens in round 2. Again, I don't know what Ryan or DeLeon here or DeLeon end up prioritizing. There could be good talent there in round 2. I understand from my perspective, I've gone Arvell Reese several times. I think it's a good move, but linebacker can tend to slip for me based on value to where, if you do see an upgrade at right tackle per se, like a lot of people believe in CC Mauigoa, to me, he's still a guard. I reevaluated him today. He will be moving up on my board, but I'm just going to throw that out there. It's up to date. And, I do think he got better this year, but I do think that I'm still pretty strong into the guard stance for him. But Arvell Reese, a good pick there for the Cardinals. Again, just got to see how that round 2 shapes up. Bengals go Keldrick Falk at number 10, edge rusher out of Auburn. Here's the problem. The Bengals love RAS guys. Keldrick Falk does not have the explosiveness in order to really match what the organization has valued. You look at Miles Murphy, size-wise, pretty similar to Keldrick Falk, but you end up seeing the explosiveness, the athletic traits, the RAS score through the roof. You end up looking at Shamar Stewart, obviously RAS king, and Keldrick Falk just doesn't fit that. He also has been fluctuating in weight from 288 to 270 to 285. Just does not feel like a guy that the Bengals would be going after. With Mansour Delane there, I don't think there's an argument for Keldrick Falk. At number 11, the Rams go Lenore Sellers, quarterback out of South Carolina. And he's someone who should go back to school and transfer personally, but this is the system I love him to go to. It's a perfect spot for him to, basically allow his physical talent to remain while he develops his mental talent, and then, have the right system to utilize both. Then we end up going to number 12. We have the Commanders going Caleb Downs, defensive back out of Ohio State. If he's here, sometimes just going BPA is the right move. I think Dan Quinn would absolutely love to have a player like Caleb Downs on his squad. Not going to blame him. At 13, the Vikings go Connor Lew, center out of Auburn. This was released today. Just FYI. If you guys are wondering, oh, is this a week old? No. This was released today. I'm reading this right now. And it's what the fuck? My brothers in Christ. This man tore his ACL 2 weeks ago. And again, I forget some things sometimes. I end up slipping up sometimes, but this is 2 people working on one mock draft and an editor, I assume, going through and just double checking that everything's good. So I'm just going to put it out there. And yes, there's always going to be surprise players. Connor Lew's a true junior at an extremely low value position, having a pretty up and down year, and ends up having that ACL tear. And we're taking him at 13. Maybe we should start flying through this to not waste our time. 14, the Texans go CC Mauigoa, guard out of Miami. At least they think he's a guard. But again, I'm really stuck on this. Again, people are entitled to their opinions, but you need to have at least some logic behind it, right? You can end up saying oh, I don't believe in Caden Proctor, because I know that's another selling point of this. Caden Proctor, so he's not in the 2-round mock. By all means, you can have your logic and say hey, I don't believe in him as a tackle. He's too overweight. There's not logic for 13th overall, ACL torn, true junior center who will probably be going back to school. Especially for a team that could be using Mansour Delane right there. I don't know. Texans, though, going after CC Mauigoa, fixing the offensive line is never a bad idea. I think it's a perfectly reasonable move. Cowboys at 15 go Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. Again, a very reliable pick. I would just end up saying counterintuitively, or I guess it's kind of intuitive if you think about it. The Cowboys have neglected running back value over the past couple of years and have had pretty solid production from it. Might want to get on Jerry Jones saying he's old school, but business people are very good at recognizing patterns, and they also don't like to spend more than they need to. If you don't need to spend this type of draft capital to get production, there's actually a chance that they actually buck the system here and say, we don't need to go after Jeremiah Love. But it would be an upgrade nonetheless if you end up having good production from lower tier options. Some could also argue that what happens if you end up getting a top tier option. Then we go to 16. The Panthers go cash as hell edge rusher at Texas A&M. Sub 31 inch arms does not make sense why he would end up going in the first or essentially near the top half of the draft. I guess it's the end of the top half of the draft. Again, nobody in the first round, I think in the past, at least in the past like 5-10 years, has gone in the first round with sub 31 inch arms as an edge rusher. The talent's there, but we have to be realistic here and understand that, like, I know the motion of the ocean matters, but size also does. At a certain point, you got to beat a threshold. And Micah Parsons was a linebacker that had 31.5 inch arms, and that's like a huge red flag. This is from scouts, 30.5 inches. It's a very scary thing. I like Cassius Howell a lot, but you just can't ignore that. And for the Panthers, you're essentially getting another DPR because of it. Because, I mean, are you going to be able to hold your ground and like be able to strike at range in the run game when tackles have 5 inches of room to be able to just have you swatting at their elbows? You got to start thinking about things like that. 17, Chicago Bears. Chicago goes Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU. I can't get mad at graphical stuff like that. I'm of all people, you guys know me, I end up making at least one mistake per video. But regardless, Mansour Delane, the value is too good at that point. I don't think that Mansour Delane is going to fall to this point. I don't think the Bears' number one position to target should be a corner, but I don't think that if he's here, you should ignore it, because corner's expensive, corner's volatile. Sometimes you just got to take what's given to you. Kansas City goes Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon at 18. It's a move I make all the time. Let's not waste time here. He is somebody who's having a pretty unimpressive year for how damn talented he is. You guys see on the board where I have him. I am a true believer in Kenyon Sadiq, but definitely a bit worrisome in terms of the actual production this year. So we'll see. At 19, the Steelers go Carnell Tate, a wide receiver out of Ohio State. Love this move. I think we should be going after a high-end wide receiver too. Someone called Carnell the wide receiver one. At the end of the day, who gives a shit? We get a damn good wide receiver, and I think that's what matters the most. Carnell has taken massive strides this year and is somebody that I like a lot. At number 20, we have Cleveland Browns going Tyson Jordan. Ended up thinking about some food right there. Uber Eats commercials are getting to me. The brain rot. Jordan Tyson, wide receiver out of Arizona State. I don't think, apart from injury concern, he would ever get outside of the top 10. He's the most polished wide receiver in all of college. And you could talk about Carnell Tate, but I do think Jordan Tyson's been doing it consistently for a little bit longer. So, I mean, there we go. So if not for some medical question marks, he would potentially go a bit higher. No, there's no potential with that. Like this, I mean, come on. We see with wide receivers who have the dominance of Jordan Tyson, they go in the top 10. At least if you end up talking about some medical question marks, granted, there's not much overlap between the injuries. Could just be some bad luck. There is a valid concern, though, just because of the quantity, not necessarily the connection. At 21, the Niners go after Caleb Lamu, tackle/guard out of Utah. Would love to see him kicked into guard and see him play that for the short term as he tries to end up developing as the long-term tackle. So I don't really love the idea of not mentioning how he should end up playing guard for the short run, at least, like kick Connor Colby to the backup position where he kind of should be. I'm not a huge fan of that at all. I'm not a huge fan of the analysis. I like the pick, but again, my vision for it is completely different. So just because the end is the same, the thing that truly matters in this draft content is the means to it, like the logic behind it, the journey to the pick, because everybody can, select somebody at random or select it for a certain reason. But if your thought process is not the same, it just because you have the same end result does not mean it's the same impact that you guys both imagine. So completely different vision for me with Caleb Lamu for the Niners. Then we have the Chargers going TJ Parker, edge rusher out of Clemson at 22. I'm a fan of this one. Young, explosive edge rusher who has the run defense floor as well. I mean, he doesn't have to be a true one, but has the upside to be. 23, the Rams go Isaiah World, tackle out of Oregon. I don't think he's played well enough this year. And you have to move him to right tackle. Not a huge fan of that. He's just not been necessarily reliable in that aspect. I would prefer Trevor Gooseby at this point because he played right tackle for a couple games last year. That's where I would end up devoting my energy if I'm going to be going, or at least my draft pick if I'm going to go offensive tackle to be a right tackle, based especially on the recent production. Isaiah World's had a hard time acclimating to Oregon, and he has arguably the best guard in the entire country next to him. At 24, the Detroit Lions go Avion Trell, cornerback out of Clemson. It does suck to see the current state of the defensive backcourt for Detroit. They invested very heavily in it, very similar to the Eagles at the time with their first two picks of that past draft. But, sometimes you just got to go with what's best for your team. If you think Avion Trell is the best, which I really love Avion Trell, he's tied corner two for me, then, I respect it. At number 25, the Bills go Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver out of USC. Kind of feels like a little bit of overlap with the role of Khalil Shakir, just because of the lack of physical presence that Mekhi Lemon will bring at his undersized build. Like, he should be playing in the slot. He's not going to necessarily be a true boundary threat. Someone who can end up taking reps out there, but just not necessarily somebody that I think should be a top tier option outside of the slot. So I do think it's a pretty limited role, but again, you are going BPA, especially at an expensive position like wide receiver. Don't think it's a bad move there. Seattle Seahawks go Chase Bizontis, guard out of Texas A&M at 26. He's ended up doing a fantastic job this year. I noted him coming into this year having a lot of flaws, but being a really good athlete. He's ended up really polishing up this year. And again, that athleticism will be great for a zone blocking system that Kubiak has, unless he's poached. But definitely like the idea. Maybe not round one for me, but again, I see the vision there. At 27, the Broncos bring in Max Clare, tight end out of Ohio State. I think you just have to be more productive and better as a tight end to be worth a first-round pick, especially if he's sub 250, which Max Clare is. Came into the season at 236. I think he's up to like 243 right now, but he has not been overly productive. A first-round pick at tight end, I mean, those are the Colston Lovelands of the world, where he was productive even on a horrible offense. Like, Ohio State has a lot of dogs in there, a lot of mouths to feed, but Max Clare, again, not saying he's a bad tight end by any way, stretch, or form, but I would say 27th overall feels a little bit rich for a position that just does not get drafted in that range. 28, you got the Buccaneers going LT Overton, edge out of Alabama. My only pushback here for LT is that I wonder what the organization thinks of David Walker, because if you look at the builds, it is pretty similar for the role. So I would end up saying LT Overton might have too little added value in terms of what his role should be compared to what's already on the team. So I'd be a little bit concerned about that. I'd prefer someone who's going to be a little bit longer, a little bit lankier. Now, granted, if you want to subtract the arm length, I would end up saying Cleve Lubin would be a great choice for the Buccaneers in the first. But we have the New England Patriots going Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. This is someone who I think is a true first-round grade, but I also think this is a kind of a knife in the heart of Travion Henderson, because one of the best assets of Casey Concepcion is his returning ability. And I'm actually quite surprised that they're not mentioning that. Casey has multiple 80-yard touchdown returns already on the year for Texas A&M, but that is Travion Henderson's kind of like the main gig he has right now, because they're just they're trying to acquire a running back. Like, I don't know what the Patriots are doing, but at the same time, I do think you're taking away value both from KC as well as Travion Henderson if you end up bringing Casey into the building. At 30, the Eagles go AJ Harris, cornerback out of Penn State. I did this in my mock draft in the second round. I don't think he's played remotely worth a first-round pick at the moment, but, Penn State corners don't go in the first either. Again, if you just want to talk about that, I think there are a lot of really good corners that you can mention here. You can end up talking about Colton Hood. Really like him. You can end up talking about Keith Abney, but I think Keith Abney is a little bit too athletically limited. But yeah, I would not co-sign on that, but I understand the logic behind it. Cowboys end up going R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. Historically, they've gone and drafted primarily outside of Ezra Raku, a little bit larger edge rushers, but they've had the most production from the not so massive edge rushers. So maybe they'll go after someone who right up the road there in Oklahoma is an absolute, I think I called him, not a honey badger, but a honey badger would end up making a lot of sense for him. Like a Wolverine, just somebody who is just like running 100% of the 100% of the time. Love his motor. And then, he's somebody who will just never give up. He's just kind of a pain to block, even if you win the rep. So it's definitely someone I like. But I mean, I'm not going to disagree with it for Dallas. I'm not going to complain about that. 32, the Colts go Sonny Styles, linebacker of Ohio State. Good value, good pick. Let's just leave it there. Round 2, we have the Jets going Chris Bell, wide receiver out of Louisville. I like it. It's a pick that I've made myself if he's there. I think Chris Bell's fantastic. You guys see where he's at on my board. At 34, the Titans go Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee. So even more reason why I would end up probably like trying to swap AJ Harris, Colton Hood at this point. They see him in a similar light, so it is what it is. Oh, I thought the whole entire thing was that Caden Proctor was, first off, not a tackle, because it's a whole thing that Roberts was talking about on Twitter. Say you can't sell him on Roberts. And then it's now like you can't sell on him being a tackle. And then he's listed as a tackle. And he says, oh, he didn't make it. And I guess he was just talking about the first round. So this isn't like some insane idea. People are mocking Caden in the back end of the first. I mean, hey, it got the engagement, I guess. It got me to click on this and make content on it. But, this might be probably like my last 2-rounder I do for AtoZ. I think that there are probably people who I think I'm going to give a better return on investment for my time and yours. But Caden Proctor, offensive lineman out of Alabama, knowing what Roberts thinks, sometimes you just got to take the shot. I mean, I guess you're just kicking him to guard. I'm not a huge fan of that, if you guys can't tell. I would probably try to go after an edge rusher at this point, like Clev Lubin, or it just depends on the defensive scheme going forward. Are you guys going to revert to a 4-3? You guys going to stick to a 3-4? That's going to be a big telltale sign. Dolphins go John Mateer, quarterback out of Oklahoma at 36. They need to start investing in quarterback. I don't think John Mateer should come out, but if he does, early second is an understandable range. At 37, you got the Giants going Chris Brazzell, wide receiver out of Tennessee. If I'm going to be honest, the one area for Dart that I don't really want to see expanded as much is the pure deep threat. Like the pure deep ball is not necessarily what like set Dart apart, in my opinion. Like it kind of is his overall game. And Chris Brazzell is somebody that you want, the deep sniper, someone who has, there's one guy in mind, that's Drake May. Or you can think about Patrick Mahomes, or you end up thinking about Sam Darnold with Clint Kubiak. Like, there's just systems that I think fit Chris Brazzell so much better than the New York Giants. And I'd prefer an all-around wide receiver to take a little bit more of the workload rather than kind of being more of the clear out and then, the occasional deep ball guy there in Chris Brazzell. At number 38, you got the Browns going Drew Shelton, tackle out of Penn State. I don't think Drew Shelton's been playing that well this year. I think of him more as a guard. I'm a little bit surprised to see him still mocked in the first 2 rounds. But, Penn State's had a rough time. Drew Shelton has been the worst of it. I just think more of him as a guard. 39, you got the Vegas Raiders going Brendan Sorsby, quarterback out of Cincinnati. He's up and down. I'll end up having a more deep discussion on him in our trades mock draft this week when we get to day 2, because I think I'll end up taking him maybe at the end of round 3. To me, he's a little bit of a day 3 prospect. I think his accuracy is extremely erratic. I don't think the precision is there. I think the high level throws are there, but I feel like we're just kind of trying to find a Garrett Nussmeier 2.0 where the arm flashes, the consistency is not necessarily there. But with Garrett Nussmeier, you ended up seeing much better mechanics on a down by down basis. Brendan Sorsby likes to kind of throw off his toes, and I think his mechanical issues leads to a lot of his inaccuracy. But Sorsby is somebody who I'm not fully bought in on. Am I the quarterback guru? I will not claim to ever be that. Maybe one day as we continue learning and growing, but usually players like Dart, I end up seeing a couple reps from, like, even when I had some doubts on him, I was like, I start questioning. For me, I have yet to really question Sorsby, like my opinion on Sorsby. At number 40, you got the Cardinals going Mateo Uiagalelei, edge rusher to Oregon. The value is just not there. Trevor Gooseby is still available. I do not understand the allergy to fixing the offensive line if the value is there. And then edge rusher, with someone who's kind of a DPR, and that doesn't add up to me. Ravens go Caleb Banks, defensive interior out of Florida. I mean, freak build. We just have to see him get healthy. Of course, this is also a mock draft that had a player who has yet to take a snap this year at number 5. So you kind of just toss that in there. At 42, we have the Texans going Jonah Coleman, running back out of Washington. This is a pick I make. I fully support it. It's a great compliment there to Woody Marks. At 43, you got the Cincinnati Bengals going Christian Miller, defensive interior out of Georgia. Best player available. I support it. He's somebody who I have it as a top 15 guy. At 44, you got the Vikings going Justice Haynes, running back out of Michigan. Vikings definitely could be on the running back market. Justice Haynes has been fantastic when transferring to Michigan. He's had a really, really good year overall. I need to update his grade, but if he ends up slipping into day 2, I'm not going to be completely surprised. Texans go Xavier Chaplin, tackle out of Auburn at 45. This fits the build that they usually go for with the Texans. You look at the measurables. But if I'm going to be completely honest, who's playing right tackle? Because Xavier Chaplin's had a hard enough time at left this year. First off, this feels really outdated. I think there needs to be an update on Xavier Chaplin. But on top of that, somebody's got to kick to right tackle. And you know who's been actually kind of serviceable recently at left tackle? Ariante Ursary. You know who ended up having a pretty rough time at right tackle this year when he had those games? Ariante Ursary. So probably we should keep him in a position he works at. And then we're bringing in someone who's struggling at left tackle. We're going to try to make him move to right tackle and start. When you have CeCe Mauigoa, I'd just rather roll the dice on that and say, fuck it, you're going to play left tackle and then go after Vega Ione, who should have already been taken, or you can end up talking about Emmanuel Pregnon. Yeah, it doesn't add up to me. At 46, the Falcons go Katie McDonald, nose tackle at Ohio State. Pretty sure I ended up making this move or something very, very similar to it in my past mock draft, so I support it. Nose tackle is a position they can upgrade. 47, the Cowboys go CJ Allen, linebacker out of Georgia. I support it. They do need to go after some extra linebacker help. The Cowboys can't get enough help on the defensive side, so not going to complain. 48, the Panthers go Whit Weeks. I'm pretty sure there's only one T in it. Again, I'm not going to be the one to go crazy about that type of stuff. Just, friendly feedback. But, linebacker at LSU. Weird, unique linebacker. If you didn't take Cassius Howell, I would end up saying you can deploy him in certain packages as a DPR, and that could add value to him. He's undersized. Someone who I think is solid in the second round, but pretty sure Anthony Hill hasn't been selected yet. Just got to put that out there. Doesn't make sense there. And I'm of someone who likes Whit Weeks more than Anthony Hill, but especially because you have a DPR now, it does feel like, why are we getting somebody who has the build of someone that you just probably try to use as a DPR on certain downs and pretty limited in terms of their early down role. Yeah, definitely a little bit confusing there. I'd rather roll the dice on someone with a little higher ceiling given what we already took. 49, we have the Jaguars going Trevor Gooseby, tackle out of Texas. So, it's pretty clear. I think my complaint about what the Cardinals were doing at 40 is pretty valid. You take Trevor Gooseby 9 picks later. So I don't understand the logic with the Cardinals. But yeah, Gooseby for the Jaguars, if he's here, I think it's a great move. He's somebody who I have worth around this mid-second territory with a lot higher of a ceiling as he continues to grow. So I think by the end of the year, he'll end up being a late first value for me, which, given his traits, shout out to Broshmo, definitely somebody that will be an upgrade here, especially over Walker Little. At 50, you got the Bears going deny Dennis Sutton, edge rusher out of Penn State. You can talk about his BPA. Solid edge rusher too. Not going to complain. Steelers go Will Lee, the third cornerback out of Texas A&M at 51. Honestly, I could see the fit. I would just end up probably wanting him in round 4. I don't think he's a round 2 corner. At 52, we got the Chargers going Vega Ione, guard out of Penn State. Won't be here. He'll be taken earlier, but good move for the Chargers. 53, you got the Chiefs going Amari Washington, defensive interior out of Oregon. Just feels very similar, but at a larger scale, or in terms of actual weight, than with Omar Norman Lott, who they'll be getting back from unfortunate injury next year. Not going to complain though. Amari Washington could be a big win there for him, especially if he grows with Omar Norman Lott. 54, you got the Niners going Antonio Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson. Solid wide receiver. The Niners are just in a perpetual cycle of just trying to find the right guys at this point, and we'll see what happens. 55, the Lions go Joshua Josephs, edge rusher out of Tennessee. I'd like somebody who's a little bit more versatile. If I'm going to go after someone who's like in that 240 to 250 range, I'm going Clev Lubin all day. I think physicality matters a little bit more. And Joshua Josephs, I love him to death, but the push on the pocket's just not there. And I just don't really think it lines up with what the Lions are kind of looking for defensively. And that number 56, the Rams go after Chris Johnson, cornerback out of San Diego State. Solid value. Also, the Rams are the type to kind of look at analytics and go after the right players. At 57, we have the Seahawks going Elijah Surratt, wide receiver out of Indiana. Again, I really don't understand the value of Surratt on the Seahawks, at least in the second. When you have guys like Nick Harbor still available, like Clint Kubiak's system relies on verticality, and Elijah Surratt is the antithesis of that. Great player in the short range and like reliable as a catcher, but when it comes to the deep threat capabilities, he does not have the ability to burn the way that you kind of need to maximize the value of a Clint Kubiak offense. 58, we got the Bills going Gabe Akis, edge rusher out of Illinois. Unfortunately, we have not seen, I think, anything. I don't know if there's been any single offense or defensive reps this year from Landon Jackson, someone who was a little bit lower on. But Gabe Akis has also been notoriously horrible versus the run this year. I don't see the value there at 58. He looks really good, though. He got in shape, like really, really well built. But yeah, definitely some concerns there. The Broncos go Anthony Hill Jr., linebacker out of Texas here in round number 2. So again, talking about what I thought with the Panthers earlier, it's again in the same range. So it is what it is. Good move for the Broncos. 60, the Buccaneers go Eli Stowers, tight end out of Vanderbilt. Just a little bit older, undersized gadget player. Doesn't line up for me as a round 2 pick. Then we have the Eagles going Jacoby Lane, wide receiver out of USC at number 61. I don't see this being the style of wide receiver that the Eagles are going to go for. If you end up looking at what they're going to probably offload, it might be Jahan Dotson. Obviously, they just ended up losing Mechie in the trade for Michael Carter. So there's just a type of archetype of receiver that makes a bit more sense for the Eagles that Jacoby Lane doesn't fit. If you're getting rid of AJ Brown, maybe that's where you see like Jacoby's a true X. I don't really understand the role that he would overtaken the Eagles offense to be worth a second round pick. Again, tight ends also available. You talk about tackle here as well. Like I don't understand Jacoby Lane's role in this offense. And number 62, we got the Patriots going Austin Barber, tackle out of Florida. He has some experience on the right side, but I mean, he to me is a complete guard. I don't see him as a tackle. He plays tackle, but the dude he got his lunch eaten versus Miami. And granted, those are 2 high-end edge rushers, but yeah, for a round 2 tackle, kind of embarrassing. 63, the Packers go Dalen Everett, cornerback out of Georgia. He's just the definition of consistent, very similar to AJ Harris, but I feel like AJ Harris should be taken around this range. Dalen Everett, kind of like the back end of maybe round 3, like early part of round 4. Then you have at 64, the Colts go Kamari Ramsey, defensive back out of USC. I'd try to target an edge rusher here at this point, like a Quincy Rhodes. That's just where my head's at. But that's going to be the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. A lot of Catalina Crunch ended up being promoted on the stream unnecessarily, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's 11:30. Time for me to go to bed. Love you. See you later. Peace.